Now for Taylor Cormier with the Week in Woke.
The Howie Carr Show now presents The Week in Woke.
Do you tire of remembering which pronouns to use? Do you find yourself trying to remember the correct acronym when addressing social issues? Are you struggling to find new and exciting ways to reduce your carbon footprint? Well, fear not, friends. The Week in Woke is here to help.
That's right. Every week at this time, I bring the latest woke stories in woke news to our listeners and to Howie in the hopes that you all can be a little bit more woke in your everyday lives by following the rules that a lot of these people are being forced to follow. And Howie's learned a lot so far. He's learned dead naming, neo-pronouns. What else have we learned now? We've learned a few things.
I try to suppress them from my memory, but you're right. It's hard to forget neo-pronouns. But
so we're going to learn a few more things this week, and one of them is that gravity, and more specifically the theory of gravity, is racist, in case you didn't know. Any guesses as to how this is possible?
Does this have something to do with firing bullets into the air?
No, it doesn't. Go ahead.
I brought that up when they were suggesting firing bullets into the air rather than shooting people who were trying to stab other people. And I said, excuse the certain elements of the population from obeying certain laws, but the law of gravity is kind of tough to flaunt, isn't it?
What goes up must come down. That's right.
That's what I was always taught.
Professors at Sheffield University want to put disclaimers on Isaac Newton's theories because he benefited from, quote, colonial era activity, unquote, and believe the physics curriculum should instead promote inclusive design. Leaked documents show that the professors are planning to overhaul their physics courses to explain the global origins and historical context of Newton's theories with an inclusive curriculum development plan. I don't know why the theory of gravity should be affected by this. I guess maybe he was a free white man and he was able to sit under that apple tree that day and experience the breeze blowing that apple onto his head. I have no idea. The plans form part of the engineering faculty's efforts to challenge long-standing conscious and unconscious biases among students to tackle Eurocentric and white savior approaches to science and maths and promote inclusive design. The document says that
I didn't know. I didn't know that the law of gravity was Eurocentric. I thought it applied across the board.
Nations, yeah.
I thought there was equity in the law of gravity. It applied to everybody.
It affects heavier people more than lighter people, so maybe there's not as much equity as we thought. The document says that important scientists such as Paul Dirac, Pierre-Simon Laplace, Newton, and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz could be considered as benefiting from colonial era activity. So apparently we're supposed to start from scratch, and somebody has to reinvent the theory of gravity that did not benefit from colonial Eurocentrism. So there you go. Gravity's racist.
I was just thinking how much I dreaded physics when I was in high school. I was always afraid that somehow I would make a mistake and end up in a physics course because I had, as much as I hated algebra and geometry, I knew I would be even more helpless in a physics course.
I love the outcomes of physics. I love the displays and the tricks that you can do, the illusions you can create with physics. I dare not try to understand how it's done.
No.
Condé Nast cooking publication ends beef recipes to encourage more sustainable cooking.
Yes, I saw this one. Epicurious. This confirms my suspicion, which I've said for the last several months, Taylor. All magazines are the same.
Yeah,
now, every magazine you can read the same thing.
Well, Condé Nast, they put out the GQ, the
Vanity Fair,
Vogue, all of those weird uppity magazines. Their brand Epicurious announced that it will no longer publish recipes that include beef on its website. In an effort to encourage more sustainable cooking, we won't be publishing new beef recipes on Epicurious, the company confirmed in a piece published on its website. It continued, "We've cut out the beef. Beef won't appear in new Epicurious recipes, articles, or newsletters. It will not show up on our homepage. It will be absent from our Instagram feed."
Howie won't be appearing on their subscriber list either, nor will anyone that Howie knows. Incidentally, Condé Nast a few years back invested in Reddit, and now the Condé Nast magazine empire is worth about $22, and Reddit is worth billions.
Wow.
I dare say you can go to a Reddit to find a Reddit site or whatever.
Deep recipe thread, yeah.
A deep recipe thread for hamburger or cheeseburgers.
They also wrote almost 15% of greenhouse gas emissions globally come from livestock and everything involved in raising it. 61% of those emissions can be traced back to beef. Cows are 20 times less efficient to raise than beans and roughly 3 times less efficient than poultry and pork. So
but they taste better. Hamburger tastes better than beans or tofu.
They're coming for your chicken and your pigs next. The Week in Woke is brought to you by Thinker.org. No more in no time with Thinker. That's think with an R at the end, like in read. Thinker summarizes the key ideas from noteworthy nonfiction. If you are a reader, you love reading, you go through maybe a couple of books a week, but you find yourself, sometimes picking up a book that you're in the middle of it and you say to yourself, why did I buy this? If I'd known that this was going to be this book, I wouldn't have bought it. Thinker gives you a lot of summaries, a 10-minute summary to read or listen to, so you can try before you buy. It's better than just looking at the inside cover or the back to read something about the book. For a free trial, including a summary of Howie's New York Times bestseller, The Brothers Bulger, go to thinkr.org. That's thinker.org. All right, here's another couple of trigger warnings that could be appearing in a university near you. Students at Rutgers University, Camden, are now being infantilized with trigger warnings on Greek and Roman literature and history classes. Associate Professor Evan Jewell told Rutgers Camden News Now that he believes that students need to be warned about historic material that might upset their delicate sensibilities. He says, people have rightfully come to a more critical stance against continuing attitudes of racism and misogyny. So how do we teach an ancient society where misogyny, sexual assault, and harassment were the norm and built into the classic texts that we read? There are debates whether taking such an approach, he says, doesn't prepare them for the real world. Conversely, some argue that if someone has had a traumatic assault, the discussion might trigger this experience. I think it's better to prepare the students than to surprise them.
Taylor, there's a word that you're using that's triggering me.
What might that be?
The word is trigger.
Trigger is your trigger word?
It reminds me of a gun.
And
I'm frightened of a gun, a firearm.
Are you also triggered
It's used by misogynists and racists and
if you're playing a game of
white supremacists.
If you're playing a game of Battleship and your opponent calls out C4, are you triggered?
I am. I'm really triggered. I take C4 really personally.
Jewell recounted an incident where a student had equated homosexuality with pederasty, a romantic relationship between an adult male and younger male that was socially acceptable in ancient Greece.
Romantic! It's known as a felony in
not in Greece, not in ancient Greece, I should say.
Pederasty.
Jewell said that this line of thought has been used against people in the LGBT community for centuries to accuse them of pedophilia, to marginalize them, and to exclude them from the community. So all of these scenarios they're going to be bringing up in the Greek mythology and Greek history classes will come with trigger warnings if this passes. All right, we have come to our Karen of the week. This is an interesting story, and there's audio to it. North Carolina official fired for exercising white privilege because he didn't call a black woman doctor. A North Carolina official was removed from his position Tuesday. This was last week for refusing to refer to a black woman using her doctoral title during a virtual meeting.
This was a PhD doctoral title, by the way, not an MD. I don't think he would have had a problem with calling her a doctor if she was an MD.
Enter Tony Collins. He's a construction contractor. I should say a white construction contractor.
Just construction contractors enough. He's not woke.
And former member of the Greensboro City Council Zoning Commission. A recent former member was ousted by a unanimous city council vote for ignoring Carrie Rosario's request to call her Dr. Carrie Rosario. This is the equivalent of calling Jill Biden Dr. Jill. She holds a PhD in public health and works as an associate professor at UNC Greensboro. The video recording of the commission's Monday meeting last week shows Collins addressing the college professor as Mrs. Rosario, and we can hear that exchange right now.
I think that we kind of lost our way on what we're talking about here. We're here to approve the standards that have been presented. And if Mrs.
This is Tony
Rosario
Collins.
has something about one of those
It's Dr. Rosario. Thank you, sir.
Mrs. Rosario has something about
Dr. Rosario.
Well, I'm sorry. Your name says on here, Carrie Rosario. Hey, Carrie.
It's Dr. Rosario.
You got something.
I would call you Tony, so please, sir, call me as I would like to be called. That's how I'm
It
identified.
doesn't really matter. We're here.
It matters to me. It matters to me. And out of respect, I would like you to call me by the name that I'm asking you to call me by. Thank you.
Your screen says Carrie Rosario.
I'm verbalizing my name is Dr. Carrie Rosario. And it really speaks very negatively of you as a commissioner to be disrespectful.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
So, look, I don't care what you call me, Howie. As long as the check clears every couple of weeks, you call me whatever you want, right? That's just the way it is.
My relatives always used to say, you can call me anything you want, but don't call me late for dinner.
Right. Exactly. Councilwoman Sharon Hightower asked the city council to vote Collins out of his position for exercising white privilege by refusing the black woman's request to be called doctor. Again, he said in the video her name on the Zoom meeting was displayed as Carrie Rosario, not Dr. Carrie Rosario. She had to enter in her information, presumably, so that's what he was addressing her as.
I'm guessing, too, if Jill Biden had been testifying, he would have called her Jill or Mrs. Biden. You know, I'm thinking it wasn't a racial thing.
No, he called her Mrs. Rosario. He didn't say Carrie until she brought it up and made it an issue. And that's just one of those examples where if somebody tells you to do something, you're more apt not to do that.
What is her PhD in, by the way? What does she teach?
Public health.
Oh.
She works as an associate professor she's not even a full professor. She's an associate professor. She's a paraprofessional at UNC Greensboro.
So she's like Dr. Sutters. Dr. Sutters as
Dr. Sutters has a state job. She's good for life. And
but Dr. Sutters also has like a PhD in public health or some such thing.
That's fine, but she's actually doing something with it. Dr. Rosario is just an associate professor.
Well, someone's got to be an associate professor. I used to be an adjunct lecturer. You know, someone's got to do that.
That's the Week in Woke, Howie. Thank you.
But you can't write a prescription. That's the key. That's where I draw the line on doctor. If you can write me a prescription, doctor. If you can't, Mrs. whatever. I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm always looking at a screen now more than ever. And whether you're an avid news watcher or in serious need of a distraction, unplugging yourself is easier said than done. One of my favorite ways to rest my eyes and still get the content I'm itching for by putting in my Raycon wireless earbuds and listening to something great. You know, we make jokes about Charlie Parker, but the real Charlie Parker was the greatest saxophone jazz performer of the era. And his greatest album, in my opinion, was Jazz at the Philharmonic. I decided to listen to it again last night. He's with Lester Young, The Bird, and it was just great. And I didn't bother anybody. I like to turn it up when he gets into his solo, but the mailroom manager doesn't like any kind of bebop jazz. So I don't bother anybody. I just put in the Raycons and I whatever I want to listen to, old time radio, classic rock, or last night jazz at the Philharmonic with Charlie Parker. It just sounds fantastic with my
and it's
Raycons.
noise canceling too. So you don't get any of the extraneous noises around you that might interfere with your enjoyment. It's so pure. It's really a delight to put in your Raycons and listen to whatever your favorite music is, or podcasts in that case.
Right. Raycons are built to perform anywhere and anytime with water and sweat resistant construction and Bluetooth that pairs quickly and seamlessly. And with enough battery life for 6 hours of playtime, you can unplug for a while. Raycons come in a range of stylish colorways with a comfortable in-ear fit for a more discreet look. The best part, Raycon makes great sound accessible to everyone with wireless earbuds starting at half the price of other premium audio brands. I'm so glad I listened with my Raycons to jazz at the Philharmonic rather than to that ridiculous speech last night. Raycon's offering 15% off all their products for my listeners, and here's what you've got to do to get it. Go to buyraycon.com/Howie. That's 15% off at buyraycon.com/Howie. Buyraycon.com/Howie. I'm Howie Carr.